My report is on C.T. Studd. He was born in 1860, and he was a missionary to China, India, Africa, and also they kind of declare him a missionary to England and America as well. But C.T. Studd was born in 1860 to Edward Studd. Edward Studd was a very wealthy planter and got his fame and fortune in horse gambling, horse racing, and then most of his wealth came from planting in India during that time. But in 1875, Mr. Vincent, which was Edward Studd's friend, invited him to a Mooney Sankey revival meeting, and Edward Studd got saved. And after that, he sold all his horses. Well, he kept 3 of his horses for his son for an inheritance. But besides that, he got rid of all the gambling and just totally flipped his life around. And then he began to host revival meetings at his house because it was a very large mansion in England and in India as well. And he began to host missionaries and preachers about every week, and he became, the book said, almost obsessed with his kids' spiritual life and them getting saved. So C.T. Studd was 15 when his dad got saved, and his dad would come into the room late at night and ask him about their salvation, and C.T. Studd said he'd always act like he was asleep. He tried to avoid time with his dad because he just hated talking about salvation. And then, C.T. Studd got saved when he was 16 years old by a preacher that was visiting. He was going to play some cricket, and the preacher caught him while he was on his way and asked him if he was a Christian. And C.T. Studd lied to him and said yes, because he just wanted to end the conversation and depart past. But he ended up getting saved that day. And then after that, though, he kept his main focus on cricket for the next 6 years. He said he was backsliding for a bit for 6 years, and he became a very famous cricketer. I watched videos of cricket, and that was horrendously boring, but that's besides the point. And he became world renowned for being he was regarded as one of the best cricketers at the time, and one of the best. He was the most famous sports guy in all of England. But when he was playing cricket in Australia, he caught news that his brother George, who's that one, he eventually got saved too and began preaching in America and started a student enrollment for missions. But George got sick when C.T. Studd was in Australia doing a cricket tournament. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's when C.T. Studd thought about his life, realized he had no joy in life, and that fame and wealth wasn't for him. And he realized the greater call was to serve Jesus Christ. So after that, he rededicated his life to the Lord. And the thing that spurred him the most was he got a pamphlet from an missionary atheist, okay. And it said he doesn't understand why Christians don't tell everyone about Jesus Christ, and now they're not more vocal about what Jesus did and how he died on the cross for us. So that spurred him on greatly. And then he went to a meeting where Hudson Taylor was preaching about the need in China. Hey, you hear about Hudson Taylor? Okay, thank you for interrupting. No, and then he went to Cambridge, and he and 6 other college students from Cambridge went to China in 1879. And they studied Chinese for 10 hours a day. C.T. Studd firmly believed, I cannot tell who is this, but he firmly believed that there should be no breaks in the Christian life and the missionary life. He said it should be 100% trying to get heathen saved. And he 100% wore the garb. He said you should never have a day off, no holidays. So he was there for about 10 years, and there is where he met his wife, Priscilla Studd. Yeah, quite the looker. But she was from Ireland, and she was in China with the Salvation Army, saving souls in inland China, and that's where they met. But before they got married, they both got malaria, and he got typhoid. But as soon as they got married, he got an inheritance from his dad, which totaled about like $3 million. In today's money, it was 25,000 pounds. So an immense fortune. He gave most of it away, and he kept, I think it was a quarter of it for his wife after they got married and for the wedding. And then after they got married, the wife told him to give it all away because he shouldn't have his treasure lit on earth and have it laid up in heaven. So that was super impressive to me because I feel like everyone wants money. And then C.T. Studd and his wife moved to India after they went back to England because they both got super sick and they thought they were both going to die, actually. They all thought C.T. Studd was a week's away from death, but they bounced back, and he was able to talk to tens of thousands of people solely because his sports legacy was still alive, and because cricket is was huge in India, still kind of is. And he was able to talk to many, many people because of that. He said he had 2 to 3 people saved a week consistently while he was there. And yeah. And then he eventually went back to England again because he got sick, like terribly sick, thought he was going to die again. And then he got called to Africa. He got called to the Congo. And he left to go to the Congo when he was 50 years old. And he thought he was never going to see his wife again. He's super struggling with that. So he said, if Jesus Christ be God and died for me, then no sacrifice can be too great for him, for me to make it for him. And that was the changing point of his life. And he thought he'd never see his wife again. He decided to travel. He wanted to spread the gospel from the Niger to the Nile. So it was a long, long trek. He said out of the 29 donkeys they took, 25 of them died. So only 4 made it out. Everyone survived that he was left with, though, but they had like constant malaria, just terrible sickness throughout the whole trip. And then he was there for about 20 years. He did end up seeing his wife 3 more times in that time, but 3 times for 20 years is almost nothing. And the wife during this time, she wasn't doing anything either. She was back home, and she was doing insane amount of work. She was sending out 20 to 30 missionary letters a day, sending out a pamphlet that was printed in the thousands. She was a worker. And then she was also going around teaching the gospel to crowds of hundreds. And then they met up in, I think it was Egypt, and they attracted a crowd of like almost 3,000. And most of the people were there to see the wife, because in Egypt culture, as we learned, they didn't know of a white woman that was allowed to talk like that. So that's why they ended up meeting, because he had to be there for the wife to allow her to even speak. But then sadly, a little more facts about him. He began printing the Bible, the New Testament, into Kathmandu language. Nope, quinoa, I made that language up. That's not a real language. And he said he was rewarded for that. He kept having heart attack after heart attack as he was trying to print that Bible. And then eventually he succumbed to his illnesses, and he died on July 16, 1931 at 70 in Ibambi, Central Africa. And then the current state of the countries he is in is, he was in China. Of the Cambridge 7, 6 of them actually lived and died in China. The rest of it was super impressive. These were definitely determined men. But sadly, the population is 53% of it that is atheists of the 1.4 billion. 20 is they're more archaic, like Confucianism of the folk languages. And then 5 are supposed Christians, which means Catholic and that too, but they don't really know the number of the Christians in there. And then 2% are Muslim. So. And then in India, it has a population of 1.35 billion. And as Alina was telling us, they're very oppressed culture of the caste system. They don't really have that mind of growing and becoming something greater because it's super oppressed in that system. And then 14 are Muslims or Islamic, and that's mainly in the northwest by Pakistan, between that border. So Christians have a very hard time, and it's very dangerous for them because Pakistan is a hostile country. And then 2% are Christians. And then in the Congo, it takes a while, 95% are Christian, but 56% are Catholic, and then 30% are Protestant, and the rest are some other sect of it. And then 3 of that is folk faith, and then 2% claim to be atheist, but it's very war-torn, and there's a lot of ethnic genocides and wars in Africa still, in the Dominican Republic. And that concludes it.